Hello and welcome to Distributed Systems and Blockchain in the News. My name is Thomas Bocek, and the first article I want to discuss is the following article here. It's an article about bandwidth and cloud, and in this article the author argues that bandwidth could be the driving factor in expenses if your infrastructure is reasonably built. That means many companies tend to have an urge to scale their resources and thinking their services will explode and they need lots of computing power, but actually don't have the need. But if you don't have this, then bandwidth might be a driving factor. And this is just a reminder that modern machines are quite powerful and they can easily handle many concurrent requests. And the author argues here that cloud providers, while they charge roughly 5 to 10 cents, so he has here the numbers here, per gigabyte for outgoing traffic, this could also be exploited, and he shows it a simple command with this command here. For example, while true, with this command, how he could generate lots of cost. And for example, he even have a nice table here. If you're with Netlify, if you run this for a month, you will generate roughly 480 terabytes of data of outgoing traffic, which will cost you with Netlify around 260,000 US dollars. And I mean, this could be exploited, or he argues that this could be exploited for denial of value, denial of wallet attacks, meaning that an attacker can generate quite some load, and the one who has to pay it is here the the cloud user who offers the service on these cloud providers. This could be an attack, but it also could be simple mistakes. He also lists people here, for example, Troy Hunt. He had an article about how he did a mistake and it cost him quite some money because he also had some recursion and he was calling his service all over the place, and this resulted in a very high cost. And there are several suggestions on how to cut bandwidth cost, and one suggestion is to switch the provider. He mentions two. Of course, there are others. There is Scaleway, or there is, in Germany, there is Hetzner, where you have 1 gigabyte. This is limited, but the traffic is actually free. So you have just this bandwidth, but you can transfer as many gigabytes as you want. So such a denial of wallet attack cannot happen there. He also mentions another possibility down here, the Bandwidth Alliance, which is here an alliance with several partners initiated by Cloudflare. These are the partners. And among these partners, these alliance members, they have discounted or even waived data transfer fees if they have shared customers. So if you transfer from the Alibaba cloud something to Backblaze, then this would be on a reduced rate. However, one thing to mention is that if you are on a cloud or with a cloud provider, you actually have a lock-in effect. If you have many services, lots of data there, it's not easy to switch to another provider. And so the cloud provider can add to a certain degree these lock-in prices, which is the price it would cost for you to switch to another provider. So the next article is about SQLite. It's the following article here. and it brings up some interesting points about SQLite. SQLite is actually quite a simple solution, or is viewed as a simple solution, which has evolved considerably in the recent years. For example, multi-instance replication tools like LiteFS and Turso. He mentions these tools as well here. Turso here, and this is LiteFS. I have not tested LiteFS or Turso personally, but I think those are very interesting approaches. So both LiteFS and Turso, they extend SQLite, so they're built around SQLite and make SQLite work in a distributed system, and especially in scenarios that require high availability and scalability. So LiteFS is a distributed file systems built around SQLite databases. And with these improvements, SQLite with LiteFS or Turso could become an alternative to Postgres or MySQL or MariaDB. And the author argues that SQLite has zero latency. So in this article here, as it's running as an embedded within your application. However, with the local Postgres instance, you can achieve a similar latency. So if you run Postgres locally, there where the service is running, you will be still using the network stack. But if you use, for example, localhost, there are shortcuts to bypass network components, so it will reach comparable performance. Again, I didn't do any benchmarks, that's my gut feeling, but this would also be pretty fast. However, this is rarely done, and in a typically cloud setup, you'll have the DB service as a separate instance. And the author argues as well here that you, with Docker Compose, that with SQLite you would not need Docker Compose anymore, or not that often, as the database will be not a Docker instance anymore. So since it's within the application, it will start with the application. While this is technically true, the database in Docker Compose gives me at least the headache. The problem is always either with the front end or the back end, or some APIs specifications that do not match. And if it's just for those two, for the front end and back end, I still would use Docker Compose. However, where I see SQLite shining is for testing, because the tests can run in memory. This you don't have with the Postgres, for example, and this is fast, and the next test starts again from fresh. If you use, for example, Spring Boot, you will have most likely test cases using the H2 database, and if you use other platforms, then SQLite might be quite good for that. So, and the next article is for crypto traders. As we can see here, everything is quite green. Bitcoin is gaining traction. Here we have dark green. However, I'm not much of a trading guy, and also reading articles like this one here gives me a bit of headache. For example, the following sentence here: after a sharp rally, if the price does not give up much ground, it may cause FOMO, fear of missing out, and ignite another round of buying. So in other words, if the price is not going down, it might go up. I don't know what it means, but there might be a reason why Bitcoin is now increasing in value. And there are rumors about an ETF. An ETF is an exchange traded fund, and is a type of investment fund and financial product that is traded on stock exchanges as other individual stocks. And this would bring lots of money into the Bitcoin system. So if you have a Bitcoin-backed ETF, then you would, there's an estimate that you would bring roughly 1 trillion of US dollars, or you could bring 1 trillion to the crypto market. And if this trillion goes into the crypto market, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, then the price will go up. And there's currently the hype around this, although the news about ETFs, there were some articles even on Cointelegraph, on this news site. There was a news that was a couple of weeks ago that finally the SEC has approved an ETF, which was actually not true, but you see the exchange rates go up, but there's still rumors that it might happen. So probably that's why Bitcoin is green, but this is pure speculation, and I'm just speculating as well. And as always, this is not an investment advice. So the next article is about NFTs and use cases. It's the following article here. So the Deutsche Post, they are now generating or selling NFTs as well. So what they did is they generate with AI images and sell them as NFTs, as stamps. And the Swiss Post is doing this in the third iteration now. So I quickly looked this up. So here is the site of the Deutsche Post. And in Switzerland, Swiss Post, they're in the third iteration. The first iteration was was very successful because this was still in the NFT boom. Everybody wanted to have this NFT. NFTs were sold out. And now with the crypto stamp 3.0, which was issued on the 2nd May 2023, there are some stamps sold, but there are still many stamps that you can buy. So as again, this is the third iteration, and here are the stamps that you can buy. So you have this Walter, Bella, lots of dogs in here. We see some of them, the more expensive ones, are sold out because most likely they have only a limited number of them. Here of the cheaper ones, you have more of them, and they're still available months after the release. So here also the traction compared to CryptoStamp 1.0 is much lower with the CryptoStamp here 3.0. This brings me to the last article. The last article is about the Sam Bankman-Fried trial. There I caught a very interesting headline. The headline is from CNN here, and the headline is, in his first statement, Sam Bankman-Fried, testified that he knew nothing about crypto prior to starting his crypto exchange FTX. That's quite interesting, I would say. So that's it from my side. Just to mention that in the last week, we also saw use cases for NFTs. We did a POAP in the lecture. We created NFTs. I quickly can show this to you as well. So we have here, I actually minted 2 of those. So here we have 2 POAPs. So this was the lecture last week. We minted actually 9, or I think it was even, no, we minted 9 of them. And here you see the minted NFT, which is now a memory that I was in this lecture. That's awesome. And with respect to Sam Bankman-Fried, as a student of this blockchain course at the OST here in Rapperswil, so from a technical point of view, you will be much better prepared to start a crypto exchange, then Sam Bankman-Fried with FTX. So if you plan to start a cryptocurrency exchange, please talk to me.